3 classrooms, 3 lockdowns, no police, no gunshots, only something standing outside, a masked figure, someone whose face no one ever saw but everyone remembers, and one lockdown that no student ever dared to recount. All of it happened inside the classroom when the door was shut, and the thing outside never left. The strange part is, no one went missing, but there were those who, after that day, they were never remembered by anyone again. If you think school lockdowns are just drills, this video will make you think twice before sitting near a window. Ethan never liked the last class of the day, especially when it rained. On damp afternoons like that one, the light in the hallways of Jefferson High School dimmed strangely, as if the sky was hiding something. The fluorescent lights on the ceiling flickered, humming with a steady buzz like a tired breath, and Ethan, already a quiet kid, pulled further into his worn gray hoodie. That day's schedule had changed a bit. Instead of the usual computer lab, the IT class was moved to room 13, located at the very end of the third-floor hallway, a part of the building rarely visited by students, as most of it had been sealed off for years. No one explained why that classroom was being used again. There were rumors about a small fire in the past, though no one had been hurt. Still, people whispered that ever since that incident, room 13 had remained locked. Ms. Collins, the new teaching assistant, was the only adult in charge that day. She looked about 25, petite, and always wore a knit beanie, even indoors. Her face showed little emotion, and her gaze often drifted off, as if she were listening to something beyond the classroom walls. Ethan and about 12 other students slowly stepped into room 13. The computers were arranged in a U-shape. The windows had been covered with frosted paper, and the light was so dim it was hard to tell if it was still afternoon or already dusk. Ethan was about to sit in his usual spot at the back of the room when the door behind him closed slowly without anyone touching it. There was only one sound, clack, dry and heavy, echoing like a full stop, and everything began from there. The class began in silence, not the usual silence of a sleepy classroom, but an uneasy stillness, as if the room itself were holding its breath. Ms. Collins didn't take attendance. She just stood beside the teacher's desk, eyes fixed on the computer screen in front of her, hand resting on the mouse, but not clicking anything. On the whiteboard behind her, there were no notes, no assignments, no materials. Only one small line written in dried red marker: "Don't open the door." Ethan raised his hand to ask something, but dropped it. He realized everyone else around him felt the same. No one spoke, as if their voices might shatter whatever fragile tension was hanging in the air. About 15 minutes later, the school intercom suddenly came on. "The entire school is under lockdown. All students and staff, remain where you are. Do not leave the room. Do not open the door. Repeating." The announcement was flat, emotionless. There were no alarm sirens, no police, no hurried footsteps outside in the hallway. Just the sound of wind tapping against the window panes. A girl named Chloe raised her phone. No signal. The Wi-Fi had vanished. Every computer in the room had lost connection. They were still powered on, screens lit, but no one was controlling them. And then, simultaneously, each screen displayed the same line: "Room 13 is initializing," followed by a spinning loading icon beneath it. Ms. Collins finally spoke, her voice low and hoarse. "Turn off the computers, cover the windows, don't answer if someone calls your name." No one asked why. Ethan turned to Logan to say something, but Logan was staring out the window, eyes wide. "Someone's standing out there," Logan said. The entire class turned in unison, but they saw nothing. Chloe, trembling, asked, Is "Is this a drill?" Ms. Collins didn't respond. She walked to the door and locked it again, even though it had already been bolted. Then, with the same red marker, she wrote on the wall next to the board, "It's back." A chill ran down Ethan's spine, not from the cold, but because in the dim, flickering light, he saw a reflection on the dark screen of the computer in front of him. A tall figure, standing behind Logan, leaning close to his ear, as if whispering something. But when Ethan turned around, there was no one there, and he started to feel it. What was happening wasn't a drill, and maybe this wasn't the first time. The wall clock in the room seemed to have stopped. No one could tell how much time had passed since the intercom had first come on. Only the creaking of the ceiling fan and the faint howling of wind slipping through the sealed window filled the room. Ethan remained frozen in his seat, eyes fixed on the now black computer screen. Every time he blinked, the reflection from earlier reappeared in his mind. A blurry silhouette, taller than average, standing completely still like a statue, but still breathing. He was sure he had seen its chest rise and fall. Across the room, Chloe began to cry. Tears fell silently, not in sobs, just flowing as if her mind could no longer bear the invisible pressure weighing on the room. Then came the knocking. Not loud, not frantic, just 3 knocks. Knock, knock, knock. Like the familiar rhythm of someone who knew exactly whom they were looking for. All eyes turned toward the iron door at the back of the classroom. The one Miss Collins had locked minutes earlier with 2 bolts and a chair. "Logan?" A voice called from behind the door. Not strange, not unfamiliar. In fact, painfully familiar. It was Logan's mother's voice, gentle, quiet, like she was trying to calm him down. Logan shot up. "Mom?" he stammered. Miss Collins rushed over and grabbed his arm. "That's not your mom," she said, her voice dropping low. "It's using your memories." Logan pulled away, like he was in a trance. He walked toward the door. Ethan felt his heart tighten. No one had time to stop him. Logan undid the first lock, then the second. As he gently pulled the door open, a gust of cold air rushed in, as if something had been waiting just outside. There was no one in the hallway, just a dim, murky stretch of darkness. And a shadow. Logan suddenly froze. His whole body trembled. Then, without a word, he returned to his seat, sat down stiffly like a wax figure, eyes wide, lips murmuring, "Hello again, hello again, hello again." The students looked at one another. No one dared to breathe loudly. Chloe collapsed, her head hitting the desk with a dry thud. Miss Collins's hands shook as she pulled a stack of old yellowed papers from her coat pocket and spread them across the teacher's desk. They were student lists from 2008. Ethan scanned the names. None were familiar. But then one name made his blood run cold. Logan Everett, grade 10A, missing since March 4th, 2008, last seen at room 13. Ethan turned to look at Logan. He was still mumbling, but this time, it was no longer Logan's voice. The entire class fell silent. Logan, or whatever had taken his shape, sat motionless in his chair, his mouth still murmuring that strange phrase. But now the voice had become deep and hollow, like that of a grown man who had been dead for years. Miss Collins pulled the chair back to block the door again, her hands trembling. She could no longer maintain the calm, cold demeanor she had earlier. The stack of papers in her hand slipped and scattered across the floor. Names, birth years, disappearance dates, children who had once been mentioned, then vanished, from school records and from the memories of adults. Ethan turned to look at Chloe. She was still lying there, but her eyes were wide open, unblinking. unresponsive. The wind returned, not from the window, but from the computer screens. Every machine in the room suddenly turned back on. No one had touched them, and on each screen, a line of text scrolled continuously. Room 13, connection established. A final buzzing came through the school intercom. Lockdown protocol ended. Jefferson High, thanks you for your cooperation. The lights turned on. Every strange sound vanished, as if they had never existed. The classroom door opened. This time, it was the principal, flanked by 2 security guards, all wearing confused expressions. "What are you all doing here? This room has been locked for nearly a month. Who gave you permission to enter?" Ethan stood up. He couldn't say a word. Logan was no longer in the room. Ms. Collins was gone too. No one remembered how they even got into the room. 2 weeks later, Ethan returned to the hallway on the 3rd floor. Room 13 had its nameplate removed. Its entrance is sealed with thick, nailed wooden boards. But through the glass window of the classroom next door, one computer remained on. On its screen, faint words appeared. "Welcome back, Ethan." Tuesday, 10 a.m. Biology room, 204, 2nd floor of Willow Creek High, echoed with the soft tapping of rain against the windows. The sky was as dark as late afternoon, and the fluorescent ceiling lights flickered irregularly, casting that sleepy atmosphere typical of 4th period. Daniel sat in the back row, leaning against the wall, twirling a pencil between his fingers, eyes fixed on the clock above the whiteboard. The second hand moved sluggishly, as if being dragged back by something unseen. 10:12. 8 more minutes until lunch. He was counting every one of them. Mr. Carlyle was lecturing about enzymes and catalytic reactions, a topic universally hated. Emma, Daniel's desk partner, was doodling in the corner of her notebook. He, meanwhile, quietly observed the classroom through the reflection in the window glass. Everything looked normal. At least, it did. Right as the minute hand ticked over to the 14, a voice blared from the intercom, slicing through the quiet. "Emergency. The school is now under lockdown. This is not a drill. Lock the doors. Turn off the lights. Take cover immediately." For a moment, no one reacted. A few students chuckled, thinking it was a prank, but Mr. Carlyle's eyes said otherwise. He slammed his pen down, rushed to the door, locked it, pulled the curtains shut, and signaled for silence. Without saying a single word, Daniel turned his head for one last look down the hallway, just as the curtain dropped. At the far end, near the stairwell exit, someone was standing there. The face was indistinct. They wore a dark hood. In one hand, they held a long black metallic object, like a spear, but twisted, malformed, not shaped like any normal weapon. Daniel didn't know who or what it was, but he knew one thing. Something had gotten inside, and it was looking for someone. In this school. Room 204 went dark in an instant. Mr. Carlyle had turned off all the lights and instructed the class to duck down, away from the windows and the door. He whispered, "No talking. Turn off your phones." Any sound could put the whole class in danger. The rain kept falling steadily, but now each droplet tapping the window sounded like a soft knock against the heart. Daniel lay flat behind his desk, his heart pounding so hard it hurt his chest. His phone was in his jacket pocket. He slid his finger across the screen, trying to unlock it and text his mom, but there was no signal. He tried the school's Wi-Fi, completely disconnected. Across the room, a boy named Jason whispered, "I just texted my cousin. He's in room 301. He said he saw someone in a long black cloak walk past the library. Couldn't see their face." holding something like a spear. When it passed the camera, the screen glitched out. Emma, lying next to Daniel, gripped his hand. Her hand was ice cold. From out in the hallway came a strange sound. Not footsteps, but a scraping, like metal dragging lightly across tile. Slow, drawn out. Another student, Tyler, tried to calm himself, whispering, "It's probably just the police patrolling." But then, the intercom flared back on. This time, the sound was distorted, like interference was breaking through. "Warning, warning, unidentified subject, armed with a bladed weapon. Do not engage, do not communicate." A long, drawn-out static hissed, then silence. Everyone held their breath. The classroom door trembled slightly. No one touched it. Daniel turned toward the window. The curtains had been drawn tight, but through a tiny gap he saw the silhouette of a person moving down the hallway. Slow, steady, not in a rush, not panicking like in a typical shooting. More like it knew there was no need to hurry, because everyone was already locked inside their cage. Jason trembled and whispered, "It's not human. It knows every classroom. Like, it used to go here." Emma murmured, "I've seen that weapon in a history book before. It looks like an ancient Assyrian spear, but longer. The spearhead is twisted, and the tip, it moves, like it's breathing." No one responded. Then all the hallway lights went out. The entire school plunged into darkness. Then, a single emergency red light began to flash at the end of the hall. With every pulse of red, the figure came into view, tall, upright, gripping the long weapon, still walking slowly toward room 204. At that moment, Daniel realized this wasn't some madman, and it wasn't just an intruder. It was hunting someone. And each locked classroom, each sealed door, it was just a way to herd its prey to the exact final point. No one in room 204 could keep track of time anymore. Phones were frozen. Watches had stopped. In Daniel's mind, there was only one thought left. Don't hear the footsteps. But the sound came anyway. Dragging, slow, scraping against the floor like metal claws on tile. Uneven, rhythmless, just slithering forward. One student, Maya, couldn't take it anymore. She bolted upright and rushed toward the window. She screamed, "I can't breathe. I have to get out." Maya's scream echoed through the room like the first shot of chaos. But no one had time to stop her. She yanked the curtains open, slammed her hands against the glass. Just as a dark shape slid past the window. No face, no eyes, no nose, no mouth. Just a pulsing void, wet and infinite, as black and bottomless as a pit. The thing stopped, tilted its head, and looked into the room, as if it were listening, not with ears, but with something else. Maya froze. Her eyes went blank. Then her mouth stretched into a grin. A second later, her body collapsed, like her spine had been sucked out. She crumpled to the floor, motionless. No one in the class screamed, not because they were brave, but because no sound could escape their throats. They understood now. The thing in the hallway didn't need to know your name. It only needed your attention. Mr. Carlyle was no longer a teacher. He slumped to the ground, head bowed, muttering, "I saw it once. In 1999, when I was a student here, someone from my class vanished. No one talked about it. No memorial. No report. It was like he never existed." Daniel swallowed hard. Outside, the red emergency light still blinked. But the shadow was gone. It had stopped. No one knew exactly when, but they all felt it. The thing was standing right outside their classroom. And this time, it didn't need to call anyone's name. The door of classroom 204 trembled again. No banging, no turning of the handle. Just a soft vibration, as if Someone were pressing their face against the door from the outside. No one dared to breathe too loudly. Daniel held Emma's hand tightly. Her hand was ice cold. So cold, it no longer felt like a human hand. When Daniel glanced over, Emma wasn't looking at him anymore. She stared into empty space, eyes wide, as if listening to a voice that no one else could hear. Then the lights came back on, not the red emergency lights. The entire building's electrical system lit up brightly. The fire alarm wailed, its shrill cry ripping through the hellish silence that had just filled the room. A voice echoed from the intercom. "Lockdown over. The school is now secure. Authorities are checking each classroom." Mr. Carlyle exhaled, like a man surfacing from underwater. He rushed to the door. It was no longer locked. The hallway was empty, clean, no blood, no trace of it. Teachers began guiding students into the hallway for attendance. Everything seemed to return to normal, until a school supervisor asked, "How many students were originally in this class?" Daniel said nothing. He glanced around. Maya was gone. Kevin had vanished too. No one in the class remembered who they were. No names on the roster. No empty desks. Daniel felt his head spinning. For a moment, he doubted his own memory. But then he felt something pressing against his hand inside his jacket pocket. He pulled it out, a shard of black metal, ice cold, sharp as a spearhead, twisted with a spiral groove, still stained with dried blood. Etched onto its surface, in letters as if carved from the inside out, "You have seen me. Now I no longer need a face." 11:03 a.m., Thursday. U.S. History class, room 207, second floor, west wing of Green Valley High School. It was cold. The sky, leaden gray. A thin layer of snow covered the football field outside. Inside the classroom, Mr. Anders was lecturing about the 9/11 attacks, his voice just loud enough to drown out the hum of the heating system. A school day like any other, slow, long, and dull. Riley sat in the second-to-last row, near the window. He was jotting down key points in his notebook when the intercom alarm suddenly blared. No warning chime, no let-in beep, just the cold mechanical voice of the PA system. "Code Silver, lockdown immediately. This is not a drill." No one in the class laughed or cracked a joke. Everyone froze like statues. Mr. Anders reacted almost instantly. He dropped his book, rushed to bolt the door, turned off the lights, and signaled the class to get down. Riley and the other students ducked under their desks. No one spoke. A few students trembled so hard they made noise. Outside in the hallway, it was eerily silent. No running, no shouting. Not a single sound to suggest anyone was coming to help. Quietly, Riley lifted his head, peeking through a narrow gap in the window blinds. The hallway light was pale and dim, and there, right in the center of that faded light, stood a figure. He wore a black hoodie, tall and thin. But what sent ice down Riley's spine was the mask. Smooth, white gray. No eyes, no mouth, just a featureless, soulless oval. In his hand, he gripped something made of black wood, as long as a baseball bat. But its head was wrapped in rusted barbed wire, stained with blood. Riley ducked back down immediately, his heart pounding like a drum inside his chest. He didn't know who that was, didn't know what he wanted. He only knew one thing. No one had locked the doors from inside, and that person had already made it onto school grounds. Room 207 was swallowed by silence. No one spoke, no one moved. Riley lay flat beneath his desk, cheek pressed against the freezing tile floor. He could hear Harper breathing fast across the room. She had only transferred to the school a month ago, small, quiet, always carrying a sketchbook. Now its pages were trembling in her hands, making a faint rustling sound that was somehow deeply unnerving. Tanner, Riley's seatmate, slowly pulled out his phone, swiping gently, trying to send a message. No signal. The school Wi-Fi had been completely cut. "No service" blinked on the screen like a useless repeating warning. "We need to know what's happening," Tanner whispered. He plugged in his earbuds, opened the camera, and carefully slipped the phone toward the edge of the window, angling it into the narrow slit between the curtains. The screen lit up, showing a blurry image. Someone was standing outside the classroom across the hall. They weren't moving, just standing there, head tilted slightly, as if listening through the wooden door. Black hoodie, white mask, crude weapon, barbed wire twisted around a thick club, like some improvised relic of torture. Not a gun, not a knife, but something was made to inflict slow, deliberate pain. Suddenly, the figure turned its head directly toward the camera. Impossible. There were no eyes, no facial expression, but both Riley and Tanner felt it. He knew they were watching. Tanner yanked the phone back, panicked, hands shaking, speechless. At that exact moment, all the lights in the West Wing hallway went out. Only the red emergency lights began to blink, and then from a distance, a deep knock echoed. Not fast, not frantic, as if the person outside knew exactly the rhythm and timing of fear. Riley curled up, trying not to think, but he couldn't stop. He remembered a rumor, a message that had spread among students weeks ago, quickly deleted afterward, about a man in a mask caught briefly on a security camera near the school's back lot. But the guards never found anyone. No one believed it. Until today. One student, Liam, whispered, "He's not looking for someone to kill. He's looking for someone who saw him." The classroom door was made of solid wood with a small reinforced glass panel at adult eye level. Normally, it was sturdy enough to withstand heavy impact. But now, Riley began to doubt everything he had ever believed was safe. The next knock came. Closer. No one in the class made a sound. Even Harper's sobs had gone silent. She curled into herself as if trying to disappear. Tanner lay flat near the door, gripping his phone tightly, its screen dark. Bang. This time, it was the classroom next door. Bang. Bang. The sound echoed, steady, rhythmic, as if the thing wasn't knocking, just reminding them, "I'm getting closer." Then it stopped, and room 207's door gently trembled. Not slammed, not pushed, just a soft shake, as if a thick breath were being exhaled right against the edge of the door. Mr. Anders, who had been silent all this time, quietly crawled forward. His back was soaked in sweat. He didn't dare stand. He simply peered up at the small glass window and froze. Riley watched as Mr. Anders pulled back, as if yanked away by something. His face turned pale. He couldn't speak. "Its eyes," he stammered, voice thick and strained. It doesn't have eyes, but it still sees." Suddenly, a sharp cracking sound rang out. A diagonal crack split the small window in the door. No one had touched it. Then, a soft click from the lock. No one moved, but everyone felt it. The bolt was turning, not by hand, not with a key, but as if someone knew how to open it. From the inside, Harper let out a scream, or tried to. It caught in her throat, just a breathless gasp that never became sound. Bang! A violent blow slammed against the door. The entire glass window shattered, sending shards clattering to the floor. But no one dared look through. Tanner, closest to the door, lay frozen, eyes wide, lips trembling. It's not human. It doesn't have a face." A hand reached through the broken window. Wearing a black glove, its fingers are unnaturally long, and gently touched the door frame. Not violently, not forcefully, just a touch. But everyone knew that door was no longer thick enough to keep out what was on the other side. The knocking stopped. No more pounding on the door. No footsteps. No breathing. In that moment, Riley thought he had died. His heart was beating so fast that all he could hear was the blood rushing through his ears. Tanner was trembling, eyes wide, lips clamped so tightly they bled. Harper had passed out in silence, her body curled tightly under the desk. 1 minute passed. 5. No one knew for sure, but when the intercom turned back on, the whole class jolted. Lockdown is over. The campus is now secure. Please wait for instructions to exit your classroom. A familiar voice, not distorted, not unusual. The door to room 207 was unlocked from the outside. A police officer stepped in, cap pulled low, face covered by a mask, eyes scanning the room quickly. He didn't speak. He simply gestured for the students to leave. One by one, they filed out, like ghosts. No one spoke to anyone. No one looked back. As Riley neared the door, Tanner grabbed his wrist and whispered, "Did you see? Harper, she's not here." Riley turned. Harper's seat, empty. No one in the class remembered she'd been there. Her name, missing from the attendance sheet. The homeroom teacher. "I don't recall any student named Harper." That afternoon, Riley returned home and opened his backpack. In the side pocket, there was something strange. A fragment of a white mask, smooth and featureless, cracked at the upper left corner. On it, scrawled in messy black ink, "Thanks for opening the door. You've just heard 3 stories. No one died. No one went missing. But no one was ever the same after that school day. And you know what? The scariest part, it isn't what they saw. It's the feeling that it might happen again." If you're watching this video at night, check your windows, glance at your rearview mirror, and ask yourself, are you really alone? If you want to hear more spine-chilling stories like this, don't forget to hit subscribe, like the video, and share the story that kept you up at night. Who knows? Your story might be the next video. See you again in the next sleepless night.